Hey, it's Alan Berg. Before we get into this episode, I'm starting something called Ask Me Anything. That's right. You submit your questions and they could become an entire episode or something that I answer at the end of an episode. To submit your questions, look for the red button at podcast.alanberg.com. That's right, podcast.alanberg.com. Click on the red button, submit your question, and maybe you'll hear it here on the podcast. Thanks. Does the Pantone color of the year really matter? Listen to this episode. Let's find out. Welcome to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Berg. I'm a speaker, sales trainer, consultant, author, and I help businesses like yours sell more, profit more, and have a little more fun doing it. Enjoy this episode. Hey, it's Alan Berg. Welcome back to another episode of the Wedding Business Solutions Podcast. I am so excited to have my friend Fausto on to talk about. You are a one name person now. That's it, so. Fausto. So Fausto Pifferer, Blue Elephant Events. Fausto, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And there was some post online the other day, just about the time that this came out, and my wife and I were talking about it, Mocha Mousse. Mm-hmm. And on the one hand, she was excited because it's like half of our wardrobe. So she was very excited about that. On the other hand, it's kind of like, it's a very neutrally kind of thing. So first of all, you do event design, event decor, catering. I mean, you do all of these things. You have your magazine, all this stuff going on up there in Maine. When the new color of the year comes out, I know you pay attention to it, right? Mm-hmm. But then what? Does it matter?
Well, yeah, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. This particular one grabbed my attention really hard because I thought to myself, how are we going to make this one work with everything? Because it's so, like, is it neutral? It's just there. And,
right.
And in my mind, it only fell into one season, which would be fall. And also geared towards barn venues, and then I had to stop thinking that way, and then all of a sudden I posted it. I wanted to see whatever everybody was doing and get feelers, and then you approached me, and I thought, yeah, let's talk about it. I think that would be awesome. So,
right. So you're kind of wearing a neutral color.
Yeah.
There you go.
And you were not going to stand out. And I always think, like, what is the color of bravado? It's not going to be mocha.
All right. So let's go a year ago. A year ago, it comes out and it's peach fuzz, not peach, yeah. Not peach, peach fuzz.
Sounds like a cocktail.
which according to Pantone is a gentle velvety peach hue symbolizing closeness and empathy, offering a sense of warmth and serenity. Okay, so when peach fuzz came out, how did you feel about that?
Peach is not my favorite color, so I said no, I wasn't doing it, if you want my honest opinion, and I ignored it. So there.
Okay. But let's go to the other side of this. You've been doing this for a long time. So we have, before that was Viva Magenta, then Very Perry, Ultimate Gray, Classic Blue, Living Coral, Ultraviolet, Greenery, and Rose Quartz the last 10 years. Here we go. How many of your couples come to you asking for the color of the year?
Maybe 10%, because they don't pay attention to it. And that's the reality of it. We as designers pay attention to it because we incorporate it, and then we educate our clients and sort of move them in the direction of, let's place, like, for instance, if I was going to use mocha this year with a client, I would move them into bridal wear for the bridesmaids, groomsmen, right, floral, your cake table, your invitations. That's where I would push those colors. When I think it was emerald green was one, and so was it green? So I can't remember the year it was, but
it was yeah, we had greenery.
Yeah,
that was wow. That was 2017 already.
And you could imagine all the velvet green couches we were using for events.
Right.
Where are they now? Probably filling a landfill. Sorry, I don't mean to say that out loud, but it's you sort of kind of have to use colors in a specific way. I am a fan of, if you're going to use a color like for a wedding dress, there are some beautiful sort of mocha, and they're really pushing the envelope with calling it champagne a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting. I'm still very classic on a bridal gown of being ivory white, depending on the colors. I
Right.
even went as far as red one year with I had two clients who wore red dresses. And I
Okay.
thought it was gorgeous. I really did. But they
Right.
could pull it off. So,
Now, it's also cultural, right? Like a white
right.
dress at traditional Chinese wedding is a white dress is the sign of mourning. So you don't
Yep.
want to do that. The red is actually the dress there. And again, you have to be able to pull it off from the inside too, right? It's your personality. It's just like
Exactly.
anything else, right? You see
Exactly.
somebody wearing a wild jacket or whatever, and you're like, wow, that fits them. I don't think I could. As my wife would remind me every once in a while, I'll put a jacket on in the store and she'll like, that's a nice jacket. Not for you. Not for you. Thank you very much, dear. Although she did compliment me yesterday, she said it was like my Garanimals tag match. I dressed myself and she liked that. So mocha mousse is, according to Pantone, a rich, warming brown that evokes comfort and indulgence,
Mhm.
inspired by cacao, chocolate, and coffee. So again, I could see bridesmaids' dresses, linens, things like that. But too much of that, again, to me, just feels too neutral. Where's the accent, right?
Exactly. And I think that where you should start is always the very beginning, how the wedding starts. Well, it's the bridesmaids. That's what you're going to see first. So that's a great place to place it. And
Mm-hmm.
also backdrops, because backdrops are becoming more popular instead of having arbors, is create a more something that's just a wow factor. And I think putting the mocha there can blend in with green, like, if you're getting married outside, that's a great contrast to that green, that brown, sort of that whole mocha feel. And then two, I would play on it. To be honest with you, I thought about it. Do a welcome drink when people are first arriving, and do say, if it's cold, do a mocha chocolate. And these really cool, just that. And it's funny because the mocha always hits me. I think in that Lady Gaga, that Lady Marmalade, didn't they say mocha? And it's in
Mocha
my
chocolate,
yeah,
yes,
and
Lady
it's in
Marmalade.
my head every time I see it, which is really funny. So I looked at it like I wrote a couple of things down, and I would start at the very beginning, what you're going to see first, and obviously you're going to see the bridesmaids, the groomsmen, things like that, the florals, the backdrop. Now if you move into like the cocktail hour, I would choose those colors for your cocktail hour because that's only going to be there the first hour. And they'll go a little bit more traditional. And if you still want to add those accents, bring them in on the runners, the candles, the menu cards that are on the table. That will add that color to the table without it being overwhelming, in my
Right.
opinion.
But it feels like it still needs another color, right? It still needs an accent or something.
Yes. Yes. And I think that mocha would pair very nicely with a cream, an ivory, something that's just elegant. Because I think it'll bring the elegance of the mocha out as opposed to it just being dark. And you don't want to add dark on dark, to me.
Right. Now
I
let's
also
talk. Well, let's talk
burgundy.
seasonal because, Grace, I definitely see the fall, right? The
Mhm.
burgundy in the fall, the green in the fall of it.
Yep.
So you get a couple comes to you, they get married in the summer. We want to use mocha mousse. All right. Where are you going to go with that?
Your backdrop and your cocktail hour. And then and
And
then and it's a way to sort of kind of engage them, and that's what I would do. And two, you can actually bring it in on your invitation, and then if you're going to do a wedding website, put those colors there. But in the summer, and spring, those aren't the feel good, like inside that I would say. But again, it is something that you could do, but you have to not overdo it. And that's my
right,
opinion again.
right. I could see a table with the linens of that, but the flowers have a lot of color in them. So the flowers sitting there in the centerpiece, bringing that out, but it's still there. So what it comes back to again is it really coming more from the designer's side or is it coming more from the couple's side? Like you said, are they really paying attention to that? So
The
you would say
designer.
year over year, it's like 10% of them are coming and asking for whatever the color is.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the color is.
No. It
Yeah.
doesn't because I think a lot well in my I should say this in my opinion it doesn't because at the end of the day like if you have a barn that's completely we have a couple of barns and inside they're dark, they're very, very
Yeah.
dark, you're not going
Right.
to bring those darkness into it. Or you have a historic mansion you're working at, if you're let's say Philadelphia or New York, And it's, you know, how historic mansions don't have, they're not bright inside. The carpets are blood red. The wood is either mahogany or
Right.
so you have to play around with that. So you have to think about your location when bringing in also the Pantone color of the year, unless you're planning on changing the whole landscape to match it. So that's
Right. So if we stopped having the Pantone color of the year, probably wouldn't make a difference.
no.
Okay. So
I hope they don't come after me.
no, I get, well, maybe what is Pantone selling, right? Like they're not selling couples any paint, right? For this, you're not going to paint your room this color, right? The
Mhm.
linens are already there. You're just picking the color from your linen supplier, right? Whether it's BBG or whoever it is, they
Yep.
have the linens of every color. So that's not an issue. So where is the rest of the influence coming? So let me rephrase that. Where is more influence coming? If 10% is coming from this, where is more of this coming from? More of the influence of color.
I think it's floral people that are actually bringing more things because is it 50 flowers?
Yeah, 50 flowers.
50
Lisa. Yeah,
flowers.
yeah, she was
They
on
have a
too.
whole section on mocha, believe it or not.
Okay.
And I was fascinated by that. And not only, they also have a whole DIY section that's also, you know, not re it's silks. So I
Silks, yeah.
thought that that was really an awesome way. So I think watching the floral people, because they really have their eye on it, because the florals come in so many vibrant colors, that they're also somebody to watch as opposed to just in your head. I am a fan that most of my stuff lives in my head. We were just recently doing an event and everybody's like, "Oh, can I help you set everything up?" And there was a lot of decor involved. And I said, "No, no, it's up here and I have to place it a certain way because it's the way it's living in my head." Because I don't do mood boards. That's not my signature. That's not my style because I'm not copying somebody else's stuff. So when I do it, I just put it out there and I said, "This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it." And it works for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but I think if you were going to follow it, it would be floral, and listening to your clients and what they're talking about in on that first consultation of colors, because they're already coming to you with all the colors that they want. They know it, and you can see them because we have showrooms in our offices. So the linens are all hanging. I mean, there's a room with over 70 linens hanging in there. And so they're pulling, and as I'm watching, I'm already taking notes of the colors they're gravitating towards. So that plays a big part. And I'm a big fan of also playing that it's the venue that also dictates that, because if you know, we have this particular venue and it has a massive American flag in there and they don't take it down. And so you have to work around, and I'm a proud American. Don't come
Right.
to me for that. But you have to work around a humongous flag that's there when you're decorating. You're never going to see a change in drapery that in my neck of the woods. In other markets, there are different color
Mm.
drapery. In mine, it's either ivory, white. They don't deviate, and it's been that way 10 years. We brought green in, and you thought I set the world on fire. You know, that like was a complete. Yeah, people were like, "No," and I'm like, "Oh, just think out of the box." And it was
Right.
for a style shoot just to see if it would get a traction. We're back to white and ivory or cream.
Right. And again, you're in the northeast corner. You're
Uh-huh.
up in Maine,
Yep.
right? So and different parts of the country certainly are going to get that. But what it feels like is if they're already attracted to your photos. Therefore, that's your design. Therefore, that's what you've done.
Exactly.
Therefore, that's what they're going to get. So, if they didn't like you said, if you're putting up only photos of green drapery, you're probably not going to get as many inquiries because they just don't see it. Um,
Exactly.
I remember years ago when we were publishing wedding magazines, my wife was doing makeup for weddings. And we grew up in New York City, and now we're up in the Hudson Valley. And there was an abundance of heavy blue eyeshadow up there. And that was not my wife's way of doing it. Hers was much more natural look. And she would go and do a makeup trial with someone and make them up without, using a trowel for the blue eyeshadow. And they look in the mirror and they say, it doesn't look like me, because they're used to seeing that. Like they're
Yeah.
used to seeing white and ivory up by, you're used to seeing that. So let's go another way with this. You being where you are, Where do you get your influence from? Where do you get your ideas? What makes, again, because it's a scary place to be inside your head. Ruben will tell us that, right? I know you long enough. I could tell you that. Where does that come from?
Department store windows. Like I love, like Pottery Barn is the most impressive place for me sometimes. So I'll go to the mall and walk to see their windows.
Mhm.
And I remember saying this at Cater Source one year. Somebody had asked me the same question, and I said I was just. It was when Cater Source was in Vegas, and I walked by one of the shops at the Venetian, and I think oh, it was Alexander McQueen. And there was this hanging display from the ceiling. And I said, I'm going to copy that. And we did. And now there are a lot of people that are doing it. And what we did was hung desserts off of these little acrylic. And so you made it sort of an experience. And that was really cool. And so that's another way that you, if you were to use the Pantone color and do it, you can tie it into those kind of ideas, and then maybe make the string a mocha where it's hanging down with acrylic, and the desserts could be a certain color and things like that. But that I get it because I like looking, and it was back when I first started in Philadelphia because we had bigger department stores. That's where I always drew my inspiration from. I always said I should have been a window decorator because that's I love the way they do it, and I love the use of all of the colors that they use. And if you're just starting out and wanting to do it, that's a great way to get inspiration as opposed to just looking at Pinterest, which is wash, rinse, repeat,
Right.
in my book.
And again, but it's history, right? You're
Yeah.
watching history because everybody's copying everybody.
Mhm.
I when I started thinking about us getting on talking, I just went back to the Wears Prada movie and the whole scene where was it Anne Hathaway says, "Well, it's blue," and then she gets
Cerulean
dressed.
blue.
Yeah, she gets dressed down about, no, that's not blue, that's cerulean blue, and because it was in this, it was this and this and this, and then all of a sudden H&M and whoever, everybody's using this blue, but no, it's not just blue. And the importance, what is it? I guess the butterfly effect, right? It just started there and it goes through to this. I'm like you. The inspiration comes from everywhere. I have
Mhm.
my one of the bedrooms we turned into an exercise room has a TV on the wall, and it's on wood that's about 3 feet tall across the wall. Why? Because I was in a hotel room and I saw that design and I was like, huh, I could do that. Right? I have tools. And it's now been covered 3 times with other things because we come up with another idea and another idea. Or as people listening to this know, my wife says, you know what I was thinking, and it means Home Depot or Lowe's, right? That's what it means, because I love doing it and she loves coming up with the ideas. She makes jewelry. And we were walking the Christmas fair, a Christmas market at Union Square Park yesterday. Our son was in from California with my daughter-in-law, and we're walking, and she's just looking at these jewelry things, and I could see her wheels spinning. She's like, I could do that. I can make that. We went to Philly the other day. She saw a billboard for a bracelet. Now it was an 18 karat gold, whatever, $2,800 bracelet. Well, she comes home and with her gold filled beads, she made the same bracelet for probably $28. It's 2,800. And she showed me a picture of the ad. And I'm like, that's the same bracelet.
Wow.
Which is also a great thing when you're looking at Pinterest, looking at Instagram. You don't know how much that stuff costs. I wish there was a price tag in the corner that said, oh, that cake, that's a $5,000 cake. But
Exactly.
you could do this on a budget if you do, you know, in the style of, as opposed to, I need that, right?
Well, it's and this is no shade on anybody. I said this recently at MBA when we were talking, and I said, we throw around the word luxury or design or Pinterest, sorry about that. If you hear that bing, and we throw it around a lot. But the reality of it is for people so I go into my 40th year next August. We didn't have Pinterest. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have any of this material. We had magazines, if that,
Right.
and we had a fax machine, a beeper, and and I worked with a word processor at the time. And I don't even understand how I was able to do a word processor when I can't even do a computer half the time, but I did. It was just easier. And it was really interesting because we were doing events for some high-end people in Philadelphia in that market. And I look back and I said, you have it very easy because you don't really have to think. And I'm not saying that nobody's thinking. we actually had to stop, produce, figure it out, and understand what we were doing without having anybody explain it to us the way that the internet does for everybody right now. And that's great for them, but you forget that we used to do it without any of that. So that's why I think I don't do mood boards, because I don't want to copy somebody else's. And again, like you said earlier on the interview, everything that was old is new again. It's just, disco balls and clear top tents are making their way to Maine. Like, in 1995, I was doing clear top tents and I hated them then. And they just are here 5 years now. And I'm like, still hate them. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Because
Right.
unless you have an air conditioner inside of them, they're brutally hot.
Right.
And, in the morning, by the time it's Maine, by the time it's 5 o'clock, it's chilly. But
Right.
it's a very interesting way, the way things recycle or they're circular. They
Right.
just keep turning. And it was interesting because I just thought of this and I forgot that in one of our showrooms, I do have a paint swatch from, I don't think I ever returned it to the handyman who painted because I liked all the colors inside of it. And it was one of those big, sort of thick wheels, and it had
Hmm.
every color imaginable. And I said, well, I'll just keep that. And if he wants it back, he knows where to
Right.
come get it. And
Right.
maybe he'll come get it now that he hears this. But here it is. And then we look at Pantone, but the reality of Pantone picking the color of the year, I don't think it was necessarily for the wedding industry in my head.
Right.
It wasn't something that was constantly being done back then. I think we have taken it over and seizing that, and then we pick and choose which color we're actually going to use. Um,
Right.
you know,
Well, it's a guidance because the difference also, again, I'm not in my 40th year, but I'm catching up to you. I remember when my fiance was looking at things, it was Brides Magazine.
mhm.
That was probably it. Then you had to go to the yellow pages to try to find your vendors and stuff like that. One of the challenges of the world we live in is the access to information, which creates decision overload, decision paralysis, decision fatigue, right? Because you tell me you have 70 different linen colors.
Yeah.
That's too many, right? It's too many. It used to be, did you want black or white? Ivory. Oh, you have ivory. Oh, right. Big shot. You're a big shot here. You got ivory, right? And then how many different blues do you really need? Right? Do you need cerulean blue, and do you need sky blue, and do you need navy blue, and do you need cadet blue? Right? All these different blues. And the answer is you don't need them, but the access to them gives you more choices. More choices isn't always better. And I think what the Pantone color of the year for the industry does is it gives you a focus for
Mhm.
you to say, yes, I like it, or no, I don't. Right. And then something else that we didn't say, but was kind of glossed over is the clear top tents have been there for 5 years and you're still using them, even though you hate them, because it's not for you, it's for them.
Correct.
Right. And it's like the DJ that, DJs would say, oh, I'm not playing that song.
Not for
Okay.
you.
Right. Now, the do not playlist has a place for about 5 songs, right? The song from your first wedding, right? Your first dance song. Okay. It's okay to not play that one. Right. And the foul language and the whatever. There's a few songs I will agree with, but the rest of it, you're making a decision for 150 other people who were, by the way, have
Correct.
been waiting all year to do the electric slide. Give them the electric slide, give them the cha-cha shuffle. Your aunts and cousins are like, we're going to a wedding, we're going to line dance. All right, let them do it. You don't want to dance, go outside. That's all. But I think that going back, that color of the year kind of gives you a focus where at least you get to say, oh, it's mocha mousse. Let me look at mocha mousse. I love mocha mousse. I'm going to do a lot of mocha mousse. I hate mocha mousse. I'm not doing it unless they ask me for it.
Correct. You're right. It's like a jumping point. And so you're
Right.
like right here and you're like looking at it and going, because when I actually did all the research for it after I posted it and then you had reached out to me, I started falling in love with certain things and hated some other things.
Okay.
And it brought me back to this I don't know if you know this venue in Philadelphia called Karenwood. I think you might.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so Karenwood.
Mhm.
I did a Renaissance wedding there.
Okay.
It should never have happened. God bless them. But this was 30 years ago. Okay. So,
Okay.
probably all the characters have moved on. Um, but it was interesting. Now we'd have to take this Beaux-Arts style mansion
Mhm.
and create a Renaissance wedding.
Right.
But it wasn't my wedding. And I
Mhm.
needed to take myself. It's what you just said. It
Yeah.
isn't about me. It's about what they want. And for those 7 hours that we're putting on this production, it's whatever they want.
Right.
You
Right.
know what I mean? It's not mine to choose. It's not mine to say, no, I don't like that. The
Right.
check is clearing. You like that? We're going for it. You know?
Well,
So,
it's the same as a restaurant. So when I'm talking to caterers or I'm talking to restaurant people, I eat out a lot. You travel, right? Not as, maybe not as much as I do. I travel a lot.
yeah.
And I will say to the server, hey, I've never been here before. I may never be here again, which is a true statement. I might not be in this restaurant. I like to eat at different places.
Yep.
Never been to the city, maybe. What should I know? What I don't want them to say is, well, I like the, because my first thought in my head is always like, oh, are you joining me? Right? Because I shouldn't tell you what I like. What they should say is, do you like fish? And if I go, oh, I love fish, they go, well, if you like fish, my favorite is the salmon. That's okay, right? Because what if I say, I'm allergic to fish? I'm going to die if you serve me fish. I like the salmon. There's no relevance to that, right?
Yeah.
So have you thought about colors for your wedding yet? And if they go, oh, yes, here you go, here we want there, right? No, we really haven't thought about it. Well, and then you start asking them good questions there because it isn't for you to talk them in or out of it, except I want to hear this from you. When have you talked somebody out of colors? Ever?
Yeah.
Oh,
Actually, the linen hangs in my showroom to say, this is not what you want. And it is now I am Hispanic, and if it's a quinceañera, go for it. But if it's a
okay.
wedding, we're not doing it.
Okay.
It is fuchsia, and it is got roses on them the size of two fists. And it's literally that's the one every single person makes fun of when they come to the showroom to pick their stuff. And
Except abuelita.
exactly. But it was something you jogged something in my thought process here when we were talking. When we first meet a client, it's interesting that a lot of them always come with swatches because they've gotten their swatches at bridal boutiques. And so they already know because they're already picking everything there. And
Right.
it's sort of the first trickle once you get engaged. Where do you go first? Well, what's the first thing that's open that you can actually go and tell everybody you're engaged? A bridal boutique, a
Mm,
bridal shop. You're going there immediately. Like even if it's 2 days after you've gotten engaged, you're going. Even if you're not going to buy it there, you're going to try it,
right.
and then
Right.
you're leaving with swatches.
So
So.
now bridal shops who are listening, email me, DM me or whatever, and tell me what's the delay between Pantone announcing Mocha Mousse and your bridesmaids section and your bridal dresses. Are they influenced by this? Because again, I'm with you. I don't know that I see a bride necessarily wearing Mocha Mousse. Bridesmaids for sure. I could see that. And really almost any of the colors, if they're tastefully done, right? If you don't hate your
Correct.
bridesmaids, right? But I'd be curious, now that it's been announced, is there a scramble? Like all the manufacturers are out there now just, okay, we need to make Mocha Mousse bridesmaids dresses. We need to make Mocha Mousse shawls and whatever else, we need to go along with that. Interesting there. So that's the only one you've talked them out of. Is that, or is there anybody
No,
else with a
that
comment?
that pretty much is it. And damask had his place for a while in linens, but it
Okay.
really is something. But something else I just thought of too, when you're releasing the color of the year, it should be released for the following year because we all work a year in advance.
Right.
All of my couples are already booked and their stuff is already in place.
Right.
The rentals, the time, all of it's done. So
Yeah.
it really, when you think about it just now, because it was an epiphany right now. I'm like, really, this should be 26, not 25,
Right.
or the newbies that are coming in for whatever date you have available. It might work for them, but the reality is, for my calendar year, everything's pretty much already set in place.
Right. So is it the color of the year for the people getting engaged now, is what you're saying, whose
For
weddings aren't going to happen now, but they will choose the color in 2025, which might get
exactly,
used in 2026.
and then they come out with a new color, and you're like, oh, okay,
Should I change that and whatever?
yeah,
Has that ever happened? Anybody ever come to you and said, I need to change the color because I just saw something?
no.
No, because
No.
because you wouldn't allow that.
No, I'll allow anything as long as you're paying for it. You know me. But
Right.
too, of it, if you can't change linens that often if they're specialty orders, so that you're
Right.
going to pay a cost. So
Right.
that also plays a big part. Florals can change anytime, but if everything's already done, I think sometimes that becomes harder. And I never thought that why are you calling it the color of the year when the reality of it is if we are all working a year in advance,
Yeah.
because I'm really working on 26 starting January, February, March, and April. It's 26 that I'm concentrating on, not 25.
Right. 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 So I'd be really curious feedback from people, again, emailing me, Alan at weddingbusinesssolutions.com, or commenting. Um, how are you incorporating this color of the year? Does it really matter to you at all? We're looking again towards next year. Fausto's saying maybe about 10% of your weddings are going to end up being incorporating this color. Is that normal? Is that what everybody else is seeing? Or are you seeing 20%, 30%? Because whenever I would think about it, I was like, gosh, it would feel like it would maybe influence a quarter or a third of the weddings, but
Yeah.
then again, maybe not. And like you said, they're coming to you with the color already, and they look at it. Yeah, it's a pretty color, but not for my wedding, right? It's just the same as when you try to paint a room. The overload, you go to the paint store and it's all the swatches, and then they have the shade of 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 the shade, right? Which again is helpful if you want the accent wall or any of those things there. But I don't know if, have you seen this, where you get this clear plastic thing that you put on the wall and you paint that?
Oh, wow. No, I haven't seen that
Yeah,
yet.
yeah. So you go to Home Depot and you get this thing and you put it on the wall and you paint that, so you can see it on the wall like a pretty big piece, and then you can just peel that right off, kind of like contact paper.
I like that.
Right, because the little one doesn't tell you what this whole wall is going to look like when it's there. You need a bigger thing.
Exactly. And if you want to do a 120, which covers a 60-inch round table in a mocha, I think that the little swatch isn't going to do it justice. So having mocha in your showroom collection, which we already do have it
Right.
there, and if you're going to choose it in a velvet, because then it really gives you a luxury feeling
Mm,
to the linen.
right. And to me, I think when people sit down, one of the things when I'm helping linen companies sell or designers sell is, you know, what statement do you want the linens to make to your guests? And most people don't think about it that way. They're like, well, what do you mean? Or like, well, it covers the table, right? That's the purpose of a linen from a physical standpoint, but that's not the purpose from an emotional standpoint, from a design standpoint. And I know I was asked to judge a tabletop competition one time, only once. I recommended you for the next one, but only one time. And I remember sitting down, and all the other people were designers. So they're
Yeah.
critiquing things. Oh my gosh, they're picking it apart. And I sat down, I'd be like, would I want to come to this event? Do I feel comfortable? And like the linen, was it like, ooh, yeah, this is nice? Or is like, And then being, around the industry, when I see a linen that's creased, you know, depends on where I am, right? Absolutely
Mhm.
depends on where I am. But if I'm at a place where I'm like, you got an iron, you should iron that, right? Lower end place, I'll still notice it, right? I'll still notice it. And that'd be an interesting thing. I wonder if I went to a lower end event and they were ironed, would I notice? You know?
Yes, because sometimes our linens can get that way, and you're pressed for time if you're not allowed in a certain time, and the linens come
Right.
from the rental company, and you're sort of stuck, and you don't
Right.
have that
No,
luxury.
no, no. What I'm wondering is, as someone who would notice the
You would.
creases, right? Would I notice they weren't there? Like, if they had been ironed? Because I always say we don't always get credit for getting it right. We lose points for getting it wrong. Like, do you
But I,
notice if you go to a restaurant and you sit down and there's no creases in the linen? Do you consciously say, "Oh, there's no creases in the linen," or you just pay attention to other things because it's right, so it's not taking your attention?
it's funny that you say that because I tell my clients not to concentrate on the china and silverware as much as they concentrate on it because it's on the table for 1 hour. Your linens and your florals are there the entire time. It's the first thing you see and the last thing you see.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, I think you would because I just posted something about a bride that had nobody show up to her wedding, and I'm like, well, first of all, how did you walk in? But to me, everything that caught my attention where the linens didn't go to the floor, the folding plastic table, the chairs,
It's right.
that all caught my attention, and obviously it was very DIY, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to do that, you can go an extra step It's just that nobody's explaining to you to say, hey, get this linen. It will make it look a little bit nicer for you. It's $2 more or whatever, but you can do it. And there's a way to do it and dress it up, I think, in my book. But yes, I think you would notice it, because I notice it when my team puts something down and I'm not there, and I'm like, oh shit, the rental company did not iron the linen correctly.
Right. And again, being in the industry versus not, other people might not ever notice that there's a crease in the linen, because there's always creases in the linens wherever they go. Therefore it is. And it's just a statement of, if your event is more of a luxury event, those details, like I said, you don't always get credit for getting it right.
Then get something with a pattern. You'll never see a crease.
Right. Well, but again, these are some ways that you can get around that. We're not going to be able to iron them. Okay, let's get something with a pattern. Let's get something a material that doesn't crease as much. Like, nobody gives you credit for all the light bulbs working in the chandelier.
Exactly.
But one is out, they start looking around for what else is wrong, right? So
you got it. You're right.
So we're going off on a tangent here. We're on light bulbs now. Fausto, always love talking to you. Thank you so much.
Man.
I think I really am looking forward to the feedback. I'm curious, from the bridal shop community, from other people, does this matter or not matter? To me, from the outside, it's just interesting. The names like Peach Fuzz and Viva Magenta and Very Perry or whatever. It certainly doesn't influence my wardrobe at all. My wife is very happy. Like I said, she's already got half Mocha Mousse going, or complementary colors. So there you go. Thank you so much. If somebody wanted to find you, where would they find you?
Instagram, Blue Elephant Catering in Facebook, and Blue Elephant Catering for Instagram as well.
We will put that into the show notes, and any links and anything else you want there. But thank you so much for joining me and talking about this. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, man.
Hi, it's Alan Berg. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Wedding Business Solutions podcast. If you have a suggestion for a future topic or a guest, please go to podcast.alanberg.com and you can make your suggestion there. You can also do it at Ask Me Anything, which is a button on that page, or just email me at alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com. And if you'd like to find out how I can help you with sales training, website review, consulting, or speaking for your group or organization, possibly at no cost to the organization, contact me directly, alan@weddingbusinesssolutions.com. Thanks again for tuning in.